you very much for coming out on a wet evening. My name is Kevin, last name Bukatman. Come on right in, take one of the handouts over there. And my name of the company is College Planning Service America. Been doing this for 12 years and I've spoken pretty much all over the country, and it's about I think the second or third time I've spoken here at the library. So I'm very happy to be back. The information I'm going to give you tonight is all fresh and hot off the press, so to speak, to make sure that you kind of understand everything and how it works in terms of the admissions process, which has changed dramatically since you as parents were in school. And what makes me the expert isn't that I have been doing this for 12 years, but I have a daughter who graduated in 2013 from college, and so I've gone through what you're about to. The first thing that people always ask me is, why is it that some admissions committees accept students, some deny? How does that all work out? And it comes down to a very interesting phenomena. And the phenomena is all about what their mission statement is. And the mission statement is pretty much what the university wants to see in the student body that they're bringing in. And the problem is that it's a moving target. Nobody knows exactly what they're looking at. So we take a look at two mission statements here. One is from the State University of New York system, which is what my daughter graduated from, and the other is from Yale University. And as you can see, for New York State, all they're looking to do is provide the people of New York with educational services. And yet Yale University and a lot of private schools like Villanova, congratulations on the national title of course, is to seek exceptionally promising students of all backgrounds and educate them, mental discipline, social experience, intellectual, moral. Look at all the words that are in there that are not in the wonderful mission statement from State University of New York. So very, very different, and that's again why families have a hard time wrapping themselves around, gee, how did that student get in and mine didn't, or what were they looking for? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more, because transparency is needed. We as a family, we as parents, students, we've got to know what they're looking for when we apply to these schools. We talk about how to create a list of colleges and things like that. It isn't just picking out maybe location, but it has a lot to do with what you're looking for, what the student's looking for in terms of an educational university and experience. So the questions that these admissions committees are asking is, where will that student be in 5, 10, or 25 years? What sort of person will you be in the future? Are you a late bloomer, or have you peaked in high school? Do you have the reserve power to do more? These are questions that really sometimes students need to ask themselves, not just admissions committees, to take a look and see what they're looking for in terms of applicants. So that's one of the reasons why it's a moving target, and we can't tell from one year to the next what schools are looking for in terms of admissions. If you're a sophomore, junior, you've probably begun, if not already, but very soon, receiving tons and tons of information that you didn't ask for. And you wonder, how did they find out? Well, as soon as your student signed up for the College Board and the SATs and things like that, your information was all over the internet. And that's why all these schools are now giving you all beautiful view books and information and apply now and do all these things. And a lot of these schools, students really wouldn't think about applying to, but yet they do, because the view book may give them a whole different perspective of what that small university that nobody's ever seen before, what they're offering. But interestingly enough, the reason why they're doing that is because there's a little subtle little secret. It's a dirty little secret, and it's called recruiting to deny. And what that means is this: what they want your students to do is to take them up on their offer. Oh, look, they're waiving the application fee. They don't want an essay. Just want us to fill out an application and submit some test scores, and we'll let you know pretty much immediately. And what they're going to tell you is, no, student's not in. So what they've done is they've taken their applicant pool and expanded it by yay, and now they look like they're tougher to get into. Their selectivity ratio goes up. So it's a wonderful little game that they play, hoping that they're going to get students to apply that they really know or they're not going to be taking. Okay? Now sometimes students apply to schools based on the fact that they don't look at SAT scores or ACT scores. And there's a website, www.fairtest.org, where they have about 600 universities that use SATs and ACT scores either sparingly or not at all, or maybe as a tiebreaker further down their list. But these are the schools that really, have the tricks to the trade, because they're the ones that know that if the students are applying without their SAT and ACT scores, maybe they didn't do well on that test, and maybe that's a reflection of the fact that maybe they're not the brightest. And that's unfortunate, because that's not always true. We have a lot of students and I used to teach high school, I know this for a fact, and you know it as well, some students don't do well on those standardized tests. And yet they have great GPAs, they've done all sorts of extracurricular activities, and so those are the students that really a school should want. But a lot of times they just look at numbers, especially public universities, and they say, in or out based on those scores. So take a look at what that's done. Boston, these are fresh, this is like yesterday's numbers. Boston University, 60,000 applicants for 15,000 seats. University of Richmond, 11,000 for only 800 seats. Penn State, 77,000 for 7,700 seats on main campus. And Yale University, 35,000 applicants, 1,900 accepted. So you can see that they are really going to be very selective, and that's why a lot of students are going to have to create better lists to make sure they have some schools on there that they're going to be able to get into. Now, before you even get into college, you have to understand that there are some fees involved. First of all, everybody has to take the SATs or the ACTs. Some students take AP classes. Everybody took the PSAT, probably at the local high school. It was a freebie, and then they decided whether or not they wanted to take it again or not. But all those cost, all right, $50 to $90 a test. Then they get those results back, and what happens? Oh my goodness, those scores aren't exactly what we wanted. We better get a book, we better get a tutor, we better sign up at Huntington or one of the remedial tutorial services that cost an arm and a leg to get those scores up. Okay, now the student has created a list, and now they have to apply. So they can begin applying next summer, this coming summer, in July and August, usually in August. And every one of those schools has an application fee unless it's waived, as I mentioned before, to get the student to apply. Then we go to visit the campus because we want to make sure that we like what we're seeing in the view book or what we've seen on the internet. And of course, if it's local, that's pretty easy. It's a day trip. But if a student is going out of town, well, there's costs involved, including hotel and airfare and things like that. And if you're driving back and forth either the same day or overnight, student makes a decision. And the school of choice now wants the housing deposit and a deposit to hold the place in the class of 2022, as it turns out. And now the day arrives where we're now kissing them goodbye and we're dropping them off. And I used to attend for my master's and my doctorate. I was in Boston. And I'll tell you, there are 2 days during the year in Boston that there are more Ryder trucks and Penske's and vans and roof racks and trailers and you name it. It's unbelievable. And of course, if you go downtown Philadelphia on the same day, you can't get a parking place, and they even have valets who are whisking those cars in and out and unloading stuff and throwing it all over the place. It really is an experience to be seen. And then finally, and I'll get a little bit sexist here because I have a daughter and I've been there, done that. With a guy, guys will throw their stuff in the room, whatever the room is in terms of their dorm room, and they've arrived. And to them, heating and air conditioning is opening and closing the window. Other than that, they don't care. With girls, I know they go on Facebook, they Twitter, they're going to find out who their roommate is, they're going to see who's bringing the microwave, who's bringing the mini fridge, what color is your bedspread going to be, I better match mine to yours, or are we going to have curtains, how many stuffed animals are you bringing? So just saying, these all factor in. So before you even blink an eye, before you even pay that full bill, you're now looking at $1,500 to $6,500 just in the expenses pre-college. Well, how many colleges do students usually apply to? Well, as you can see, the overwhelming majority, it's between 5 and 8. That's a pretty decent number of schools. If you are familiar with FAFSA, how many of you have students who are either in college or have experienced that yet? Well, the FAFSA, which is the financial aid form, has space for 10 schools at a time. So you can do 10 at a time, wait a few days and put in more if you wish. For my clients, the record that I remember is that I had a student apply, not because I wanted him to, but because they wanted him to. He applied to over 30 schools. And that's a little bit of overkill. And he wound up going to Penn State. So, I mean, a lot of fees paid for virtually no return at all. So 5 to 8 is a good number. When students are asked what's the toughest part of the college application, it's taking those SATs and ACTs and completing the applications. Those are the two biggest ones, okay? For a lot of people, researching, sometimes they overkill and they research every little minute detail that there is. And for some, the worst part is right around now, waiting for the decisions, which have now pretty much come out, except for a few private schools that are still in the process of letting their students know who's in or who's out. But the major way that everything has been impacted by this economy is really for families looking to apply to schools with better financial aid. And that has been tried and true now for the last 4 or 5 years. It was never about cost until it got out of hand in terms of how much universities and colleges cost today. If you are familiar with the fact that Temple University or Penn State are between $30,000 and $33,000 a year, when you guys, and I'm talking to the parents now, when you guys went to college, that was for all 4 years. That wasn't just for 1 year, and that's what it is now. So, why do businesses market themselves? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. They want you to buy something or, get involved with whatever they're selling. And so for students, this is all about marketing. This is all about making sure that you put your best foot forward and you do everything that you need necessary to make sure that you're going to be doing everything that you need to do to get into the college of your choice. And once you're there, it's a very, very different style of education. Here in high school, it doesn't matter which high school, classes meet every day, there's a daily routine, you know your teachers, you know the parents are going to be with you and saying, did you finish this? Did you get your homework in? You remember you have that test to study for, so they're sort of monitoring everything that the student does, and the student is very comfortable at their high school because all their friends are there. Well, now they go off to college where classes meet twice a week, and the student, not the parent, are the ones responsible for getting up, making sure they eat, making sure they get to class on time, turning assignments on time. It's all independent. And for a lot of students, that's a big transition. And that's one of the major reasons why a student succeeds or fails at the college level is if they are self-motivated. And they have to embrace that challenge because whereas parents used to be the ones to just kind of guide, and teachers were always there to say, did you do this? I'm looking at my grade book, you missed this assignment, get it in by Friday, or I give you a 0, whatever it's going to be. But this is a whole different thing about this transition. Now when students do a college list, okay, it's a very interesting process. The primary factors are here on the left side. So you take a look, first of all, where do they want to be? Is it going to be near? Is it going to be far? Is it going to be driving distance? Do you care if it's going to be a plane flight? I often think of planes, trains, and automobiles around the holidays to try and get students back and forth to school. Then it's the size. Do you, a student like a small environment? Sometimes what happens is you have a student who comes from a small high school and they want a big environment. But at the same time, you have students at a small high school and say, I like that camaraderie, I like the fact that everybody knows me. That's the type of environment I want to continue in. So there's small, there's medium, there's large. I'll show you large in a few minutes. If you think Penn State is big, but you see some of the numbers I'm going to show you. Then you take a look and see what those schools want in terms of their average SAT and ACT scores. And that's an important factor because if your student falls within the 50% range of their middle, that's a good school for them to apply to. But if it's going to be below or above, that's either a reach school or a safe school, depending on which end of the spectrum they are. How selective are they? How diverse are they? I mean, I've been in school districts where it's 99% of one ethnicity and that's it. And I've been in others where there's a very nice mix in between. Again, some students are comfortable in one environment and not the other. Not for any reason except maybe they haven't had that exposure. So it's something to take under advisement. Do you want a public school, public university or college? Do you want a private school? One of the most popular majors. When you look at these schools, here's a little clue for you. College Board, if you're familiar with College Board, they have a very nice website that has over 3,600 schools on it. And what you want to take a look at under those schools is not only how big they are, where they're located, SAT scores and things, but what are their top 3 majors, most popular? Well, if your student's major is within those 3, then you know that that's where they're putting the millions of dollars that they need to continue those programs. Every student knows that there could be a psychology program at almost every school. But do you go to Drexel for business and engineering, or do you go for psychology? Well, we know psychology is not a big major in Drexel. So I wouldn't know if that would be the best place to go for a psychology major. And then percentage and amount of scholarships, and most importantly, co-ops and internships, which students can take while they're in school. Now, co-ops and internships, if you go to Drexel, not that I'm picking on Drexel tonight, but if you go to Drexel, that's all they hammer home in their tours. Oh, we have co-ops, we have internships, oh, it's fantastic. Well, just to let you know, all schools have those, but they just happen to use that as their #1 talking point when it comes to recruiting students. Arcadia, another great university here locally, they hang their hat on their study abroad programs. So their study abroad programs, you'll hear study abroad at Arcadia, which is great, okay? But all schools have study abroad programs. It's just a matter of what they're going to be emphasizing. Other factors, whether the student's going to live on campus, off campus, or at home, the campus activities and clubs that they're interested in, sports and athletic programs. It's a proven fact that now that Villanova has won again for the 2nd time in 3 years, their applications are going to skyrocket for no other reason except they won the national championship. The same thing happened with a school called George Mason down in Virginia when they made the Elite Eight about 10 years ago. And Florida Gulf Coast, who nobody had ever heard of, they made the Elite Eight, and all of a sudden their applications went through the roof for only reason that they saw them on national TV. Fraternities, sororities, Greek could be important. For some students, they're going to want to know, hey, do they have a great football team, basketball team? Is there a lot of spirit on campus? Well, you take a look at Villanova these days and you know what that looks like. All right, but Big Ten schools, same thing. There's a reason why their football stadiums are over 100,000 in terms of seating capacity. Fraternities, sororities, I mentioned, support services if a student's having a problem in class. Do they provide support? Is the student going to be kind of monitored to make sure that they're going to stay on the track? And then most importantly, we know that college is a bridge to what? Getting a job. So hopefully, as a parent, when you visit these campuses, while you're taking the tour and afterwards, you visit the placement office and you find out, for my child's major, when they graduate, what percentage of them are going to be hired within 6 months. But that's too general, because they can throw in there the fact that, yes, our student's graduated and he's now a manager at Burger King. Well, that does count in terms of their numbers. So you have to be very specific in saying, if my student is a psychology major, when they graduate within 6 months, how many of them get psychology jobs in the field? That's a more specific question and very, very important to ask. Now, when students make up their college list, there sometimes, and maybe parents are jaded this way also, they only get the big name schools. They look at schools that everybody's heard of. They figure, if everybody's heard of them, and they're big, and they're wonderful, and that's a great place to apply to. Well, not so fast, because sometimes in these majors, big isn't always the best. So if you take a look at some of these programs, if your student is interested in any of these, you have to be more specific in terms of what you're looking for in terms of the college or the university. And video game design, by the way, is a major, and it is a big major. I mean, students graduate and get jobs in the gaming industry, $80,000, $90,000 a year. So no laugh there. But let's take a look. Marine biology. So marine biology, you would think, oh, all these schools that are along the coast must have marine biology programs, and they must be really excellent. Well, many of them are. But the thing that you would ask is, all right, Boston University, SUNY standing for State University of New York, Stony Brook, which is on Long Island. and University of Miami. They have high-tech, state-of-the-art waterfront labs. Well, that's where the action is. So if you're going to be a marine biologist, you want to take a look at schools that have that type of technology available. Now, students who are engineering wannabes, engineering majors, we've all heard of mechanical, we've all heard of electrical, we've heard of civil engineering, architecture, things like that. I don't think too many of us have ever heard of packaging engineering. And the reason why I bring this up is because sometimes what you don't know could turn out to be the perfect major for a student. For example, schools like Clemson, Michigan State, and Rutgers. What do they have in common? Well, packaging engineering is the technology that gets the stuff that you order online to you without breaking into a million pieces. So these schools have built high-end, exactly what they look like, Amazon and Walmart, these distribution centers and packaging plants and things like that to make sure that the students are training on the most high-tech equipment available. And no joke, graduates with this degree have multiple high-paying job offers and bonuses. So it's something that you may not have ever heard of. But if a student's looking at engineering, take a look a little less off the beaten path there. That could be something that could be a game changer. When you're creating a college list, guidance counselors, what they do is they sit your student down and they take a look at the transcript, or they take a look at the report card, and they say, oh, I see you're good in math and science, therefore you should be an engineer, or you should be pre-med, or you should be something else. But if you're good in English and history, oh, well, in the social sciences, that's where you should be, because you're good in those subjects. I don't like that. I would rather ask questions to find out what a student is really interested in terms of what they're looking for in a school. You like the idea of being the smartest student or being surrounded by smart students? That's a big question, especially for students who have very high GPAs, because they realize that maybe at Phoenixville High School, they may be valedictorian or top 5 or 6 in the class, but don't forget, if you're going to a university that attracts students like that, you're amongst many students who are now top 5 or 6. So that means it's going to be a little bit more of an emphasis on education, and it's going to be a little bit tougher for the student. Finding a specific course of study, or having a wide range of options. Do I know what I want to do yet, or do I want to go in undeclared and take a look around and see what's available? Meeting 5 new people a day, finding 5 people for life. Well, we can answer that generationally. For students, it's finding as many friends and getting as many friends as we can, whether they're real or imagined on the internet. But with us as parents, at our age, and I'm ancient compared to you guys, but at my age, it's more about, do I have a few close friends I can kind of hang with and be with and count on that I've known for many, 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 many years. So there's a big difference there. And then finally, do you like the familiar, or are you willing to branch out and try the unknown? These are good questions to ask. When you choose a major, remember geometry and the good old Venn diagrams? Well, there's one right there. So here are the 3 of them, all right? What you love to do, what you're good at, what pays well. Well, if you get all 3, God bless, you're a winner, okay? How many of us can honestly say that that has happened in our lifetime? Not often. Hopefully you've had it at least once. But some people have been looking for years and years and haven't found that. But if we look at what we love to do and what you're good at, you might be very happy in your job, but you may not be earning a lot. And if you're loving something and what you're good at and what pays well, you could be wealthy, but you're bored. I mean, my grandfather's a perfect example. He was an insurance representative for an insurance company for 42 years and hated every single day of his life. And the reason why is because in that generation, nobody changed jobs, nobody changed schools. I have a wife, I have children, and I'm stuck at what I'm doing because I know every week I get a paycheck. And that's the truth. I like to look at things a little bit differently, breaking things into data, things, ideas, and people. So we know that we don't fit into one particular category. And by the way, if your student takes an ACT, which is the antithesis of the SAT, but if you take an ACT, when you get the results back, there is something that looks like this that kind of shows you where the student falls in terms of prospective majors. But if you like data and things, that's where finance and communications and computers comes in. And if we look at things like technologies, engineering, that's where data and ideas and things come in. People and ideas, performing arts, visual arts, things like that. But again, in any budget, that's always the first cut. So you always want to make sure that, the student has a fallback plan. And then finally, for data and people, it's all about marketing, sales, management, and things like that. Many students ask, should I declare a major? Well, there are pros and cons, and some students will like that because it makes you a more attractive candidate if you say, I'm going in as a major in whatever the major is, and they're eligible for major-specific scholarships, and it strengthens the application. But the other thing is, if they're going in with a declared major, you go into engineering or medical, those are the elite students. You're going up against really, really tough competition there. If you're applying undeclared, it shows maybe that you are open to suggestions and there's a wide range of possibilities for you. If you're applying undeclared, though, it may be that you wait too long to declare a major, and maybe the courses you're taking won't count towards that major, which means you may have to go for another semester or another year to make up that time. When you choose a career, I like passion, mission, vocation, profession. Anywhere in that spectrum is going to be good. But again, students have to identify what it is that they really want to do. And at their age, I'm hoping that they choose more towards the passion, because they can always become cynical old men, sort of like me, later on in life. But for now, let them explore a passion, something that they love to do, that they believe in, I think is important. When they graduate, and I spend as much time talking about graduation as I do about admissions, because that's the end game. Those are all the things that are going to be the employer, looking for on the resume and things like that. But many students feel, hey, I got a diploma from college, so I'm good. Well, GPA in college does count as much as it does anywhere else, because rightly or wrongly, if a student has a 3.4, another student has a 2.4, unfortunately, some of these employers are naive enough to think that the 3.4 may be smarter. Maybe smarter in the classroom, but they don't know that the 2.4 student has had a lot of experience, a lot more experience than the other student. But again, they're jaded that way. Priority skills, those are all important, but I will emphasize one at the very end there, coding. In case you don't know what coding is, and if you do, I'm just going to re-emphasize, it's learning a computer language. Now, even if your student has nothing to do in the major with computers or anything like that, and it's one of those things that's very, very important, and employers are looking for. Can you speak the language of the computer? Can you design things like that to make yourself more invaluable as an employee? These are the majors that lead to the jobs today. If you take a look, a lot of them are engineering. There's computer, game, and web design, forensic science, business analytics for business, robotics, sustainability. These are areas that in the next 10 or 15 years are going to have a lot of great job opportunities. And speaking of job opportunities, I was in Michigan 3 weeks ago, and I spoke at a couple of high schools. And they didn't, some of them didn't even know this, but I didn't know because I went on and took a look. Northern Michigan University, okay, is the first one offering a BS in medicinal plant chemistry. Oh, what does that mean? Well, take a look at the plant, you'll know. Okay, it's $1 billion industry. Now, I'm not being political here about right, wrong, or indifferent, but I'm just saying, this isn't like a joke course, where a student goes to class, gets high, and they get a diploma. That's not how that works. Take a look at what the course requirements are. They are heavy science courses. And this is one of the first of many, probably, universities that are going to have different types of majors that students may not have thought about before. So, it's funny, when I was 16, I had an uncle who lived out in the state of Washington, University of Washington in Seattle, and he was a forerunner. He was doing this way back then in the 60s. And, I thought I was pretty cool having an uncle that was high all the time. But little did I know that 50 years later, what do you know? There's a degree for it, and research opportunities. If you're looking at money as an object, 4-year degrees, there's your beginning salaries, many of them engineering, but you can see mid-career. Those are all terrific, and it's something to take a look at if, that's of importance to the student or the family. But it doesn't always have to be a bachelor's degree. There are great 2-year programs at community colleges and even at the university where you get an associate's degree, and those aren't bad salaries for a 2-year degree. I love the second one because who knew that I'm up in an airplane and the guy guiding me in is going to be a guy with a 2-year degree. But again, that's the difference. A 2-year degree, but maybe many years of experience I'd rather have that person than a 4-year bachelor's person, or went for a master's. I don't know if there's a master's in air traffic controlling, but you know, if that's somebody fresh out of school, I have less confidence in getting that plane down safely than if there's somebody who has been doing it for a number of years. So you can see the 10-year growth as well. Those are all great growth rates. So when you're looking at admissions, when you're looking at college, these are things that you have to take under advisement. For liberal arts, not bad. I mean, they start off way lower than some of their other counterparts, but over the course of time, they make it up. By mid-career, they're earning great salaries, but it comes at a price tag. I mean, those are 4-year degree programs at Colgate, Lafayette, Swarthmore, all the ones here locally. $186,000, that's a sticker price. Obviously, that's not what a lot of people will pay, but that's an awful lot of money for a degree, okay? But the good news is that there are many private universities that are not filling up. There's empty seats. And because of that unaffordability, they're willing to take a look and say, if you can come anywhere near what we think you can pay, you have a leg up on the competition. Not that I'm saying you should pay full price, but it's something that they consider when they're looking at financial aid opportunities. So they're heavily recruiting students, especially if families can pay anything close to their tuition. These are the underrated and valued universities in your handout for this region. And these are all great schools, and the reason why they're called value or underrated universities is because they don't cost a lot, they're very highly ranked, and they give good financial aid. So that's a good place to look. When we were talking about big universities, there's big and then there's humongous. So Penn State at 41,000, that's pretty big. And many students are turned off by that, and other students say, I can't wait to get there and see as many friends as I can get. But look at some of these others, especially UCF, Central Florida, 56,000 students, okay? I mean, Orlando, you can see from space, not because of Disney World, but because of that university and the town itself, okay? Now, for the application process, there are different types. For early decision, which is ED1 and ED2, and the difference is when the due date is of the application. You're allowed to apply early decision if the university offers that to only one university. So even if they have many that want you to apply that way, you can only apply to one and one only, okay? And it's binding. They make you sign a waiver that essentially says, if we accept you, you're ripping up all your other applications, all your other financial aid forms, you're coming with us, unless you can prove that you can't afford us. And they get around that by giving you a pre-read, by sitting down with the family literally and saying, show us your tax return, show us your assets, we'll tell you how much we can give you and how much this is going to cost before you even apply. I like early action better because it is non-restrictive, and it really is just checking a box and maybe answering a short answer or something like that for most applications. So the good news is non-binding, and you'll see what the benefit of doing that is. And regular decision, of course, is non-binding, and you can apply to as many as you want. The difference, early decision will increase the student's chances of getting in by between 10 and 50%. 10 and 50%, that's a big number. But you're bound if they take you. With early action, you have a 30% greater chance of getting in, and that's like getting an extra 100 points on your standardized tests. So that's pretty big as well. The major concern about early decision, right there, you don't have the ability to compare financial aid awards. You can miss out on certain scholarship opportunities, merit aid, things like that. But here's the difference. American University accepts 85% of their early decision candidates, yet they only accept 23% if the student applies regular. There's some big differences. So you have to do your homework in terms of what these schools really are going to do in terms of accepting you or not. If you're familiar with rolling admissions, most public universities have what is called rolling admissions, some private do. All that means is that if the student gets in, their application, letters of recommendation, transcripts, things like that, as soon as the admissions committee has everything they need, they're going to let the student know if they're in or out. Penn State begins letting students know if they're in or out September 1st. So if students get that stuff done over the summer and get it in, before they even get back to school, or maybe the first week they're back for their senior year, they already know they've been accepted somewhere. and look at the schools that accept that, all right? I have mostly public universities, but RIT is a private university, and there are others that will give you that experience of getting, of knowing that you're in a lot sooner than not. Many students ask, well, now around this time of year, they're getting those acceptance or deferral letters, and many students are getting deferred and waitlisted, a lot more this year than in the past, and I can't tell you why. But if you take a look at the universities that I have up here, the total number on their wait list last year was 7,200 students. Notice how many they took. So what I like to say is that the deferral or wait list is a nice way of saying you're close but no cigar. So even if they come back at the very last moment after May 1st, when student has made the decision, you paid your deposit, everything's ready to go, and now their top choice university changes their mind or takes them off the wait list and says, congratulations, you're in. All their financial aid is gone. So you're paying full price for the privilege of the student going to their top choice university. So again, not a great way of looking at it. And sometimes the student will, get that rejection or that deferral and get very upset. And I know why, because they had their heart set on that particular school or university. Well, in very rare instances, it does not work all the time. They can write a letter to the admissions committee saying, I'm disappointed, I don't know what else I could have done, here's all the good things I've done, please review my transcript, please review what I've done and see if there's any way that I can get in. And in rare instances, admissions committees like a student who fights for their place in the class, and maybe they will reverse themselves. I had a student who got deferred from University of Michigan, was his top choice, engineering, was all set, couldn't believe that he was deferred. To tell you the truth, I couldn't believe it either. He had a great transcript, resume, everything in his favor. And so he wrote that letter. And he went on a skiing trip, and lo and behold, he got a text from the admissions office at Michigan. They reversed themselves. And he was very happy about it and wound up going to Penn State Schreiers. Okay? Because it was less expensive and a better program. Sometimes students will ask you, hey, I don't know why I didn't get in. Why didn't I get in? Well, here's one of the major reasons, and people don't know about it. Some majors have specific high school course requirements. Here's where your guidance counselor comes in. Because if the student has engineering on his mind, let's say in a sophomore year, or female engineering, or medical, or anything like that, there are certain schools that require a certain class structure to get in. There's a difference between engineering and engineering technology. Required high school math, 4 years. Engineering technology, 3 years. And you have to take pre-calc. Under engineering technology, you should take it, but they will not eliminate you because you didn't. High school, 4 years, physics and chemistry. Engineering technology is 3 years, either or. And then we take an SAT scores, math classes, and college physics. That's why. So sometimes when a student says, I don't know why they rejected me outright, well, the reason is the admissions committee looked at the transcript and said there was a course missing, or maybe 2. And so if there's enough time, you can make it up. But if we're now in senior year, and now all of a sudden you're finding out that you don't have the courses, that's a crushing defeat for the student, and no fault of their own. When you look at the transcript and what colleges look at, the top 3 are what public universities only have the time to look at because there's so many applicants, tens of thousands of applicants. The rest of it is what the private schools can look at because they get fewer applicants and they're looking for the whole student. So there's a major difference, again, what schools are looking for, what admissions committees are looking for. Extracurriculars, really, really important these days. In the old days, they weren't. They just were caring about what the GPA was, class rank, and then finally, perhaps they look at the SAT and the ACT scores. Those are the 3 major things. Extracurriculars today, very important because we're now in a global society, so to speak. So now we're looking at all these different things, the organizations and clubs that the student belongs to, if they're in athletics, if they have leadership roles, volunteering and community service. All these things now count a great deal. Shows commitment and persistence, and these universities want to see not the number of extracurricular activities, but rather a smaller number, but a greater commitment over a number of years. So when you ask, my student's well-rounded, is that a good thing? Sometimes it is, but many times these universities are looking for corners and edges. They're looking for somebody a little bit different. They're looking for somebody who stands out. And I'll talk about herd mentality. They want students that, can multitask. They hold down a part-time job, they're doing great at school, they help out in the community and organizations and things like that. And what I'm very fond of saying is, let's say that you belong to a school and a student looks at the list of clubs and organizations, doesn't see one that they like. I'll use robotics as an example. Many schools have robotics clubs, but there may be schools that don't. And this student is engineering and wants to go further and says, boy, we don't have an engineering, a robotics club. What should I do? Very simple. Find yourself somebody, a teacher, who's going to be an advisor. Find 3 or 4 friends that are interested in robotics like you are. Elect yourself president for life, okay? And off you run. It looks great on the resume. President and founder of the X high school robotics club. So again, just because they don't have what you want doesn't mean you can find something that you'd like to do. And it shows initiative, it shows originality. I'm all for this. And I speak at Future Business Leaders of America events at FBLA. I'm up there on Monday and Tuesday in Hershey. And this is major. Many students, I asked them, I said, if you had a club that isn't in your high school, what would it be? And it's amazing the ideas that these students come up with. And what is preventing them from doing it? Nothing, except they didn't need permission. They just need somebody to go and say, let me find an advisor who's going to help me get this thing launched. Essays, second most important piece of real estate on your application. Now, for public universities, maybe it's a personal statement, and that's about it. For some schools, it's the common application, which is a application that's good for 600, 700, 800 schools, where you only have to fill in your information once and choose from 7 prompts, writing 1 essay. That's between 500 and 650 words long. So the topics are generic. In other words, they just want to see if the student can write something passionate and proofread it and be very successful that way. But many universities are now doing a lot of very interesting topics. For example, is doing the wrong thing for the right reasons ever acceptable? Well, there's an essay that you can write a lot about, and that's great dinner table conversation, that's for sure. Pick a person in history or fiction to converse with for an hour. Who would it be, and what do you talk about? It's another good one from Barnard College. And then there are others. University of Chicago used Sharknado as an example to talk about things that you love not in spite of, but rather due to quirks or imperfections. And they quoted the movie Sharknado. We loved it because it was so bad it was good, that kind of thing. If you want to have a lot of fun, Google on your computer, University of Chicago essays. They have a contest with their alumni every year. Whoever can come up with the most off-the-wall essay topic is the one that they select as one of the prompts for the students to use. And you'll be amazed. I mean, here's one. I didn't want to use a short one just for an example. What's so odd about odd numbers? And again, no word limits, so you can only imagine what those essays entail. Schreier's, by the way, which is the Penn State Honors College, doesn't even look at SAT scores. They look at the body of work of the student and the answers to 3 essay questions. You have to answer all 3, no word limit, and they are very thought-provoking. The one right there about the different types of media that the student follows and subscribes to, and why they do it or why they identify with it, is just one example. So there's a lot of really, really great things out there for essays. This is on your handout. I'm not going to read them all. Admissions committees are looking for definitely definitive types of traits in a student, and that's why, again, they can weed out the ones that they want from the ones that they don't. The 3 great ways to show a college that it's their top choice: visit, I'll go into visits in a minute; interview. Many schools may not ask for an interview, but if you request one, they will grant it. They'll find a alumni in the area, and you can meet at a Starbucks for a half an hour, and sometimes that goes a long way towards an accepting a student. because they get a real feel for what the student is like, and they write up their report, send it into the admissions committee, and that could become one of the major reasons why the student gets in. And the only reason why a student wouldn't interview is if they were rude, or they were late, or they didn't dress well, they wore a Temple sweatshirt to a Penn State interview, things like that. So the other thing is writing an over-the-top personal statement, something that shows the student for who he or she is. When you visit the campus, I always recommend, do a little preparation. Schedule a tour, and that's on the student. Now, in the old days, they'd have to call, which was awful because who talks on the phone anymore? It's all texting, so they now allow the student to email and get an appointment through email. The student should explore the official website, review all sorts of things, get a map of the campus so that you don't park in one end over here and your tour begins in 3 minutes and it's 4 miles across campus. So you want to find out where things are, and then ask about the possibility of meeting with a professor in your anticipated major, which is great, because now you can really ask questions about that particular program. For parents, make your list of questions, you make the hotel reservations, and keep and limit your visits to no more than 2 a day. 1 a day is more than enough. But some families say, you know what, I'm only in that area for a short time, I'll do 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Fine. Again, make sure that you see what the terrain of that second visit is. Because if you have the first visit and it's pretty flat, you have lunch, now you're dragging yourself all over this campus that has many hills and valleys, and it's a hot day and things like that, you're not going to have a favorable review of the university. That could be the top choice for the student. When you're there, everybody's going to be taking pictures. You used to need a camera, now you have your iPhone, you're all set. Visit the student union for the students, talk to students, make sure that they have their cell phones away, that they're not walking around like this, because the only thing they'll know about that school is whether they're walking on concrete or gravel. You want to take a look around and see what these students look like. Do they dress like me? Do they walk like me? Talk like me? Are they interested in what I'm interested in? When you go to the student union, they'll have all sorts of stuff up on the bulletin board, and who's coming, maybe there's a concert or a big athletic event or a guest speaker, things like that. Make sure you visit the dining facilities, which mostly will all be on the tour. They're going to show you and put their best foot forward, of course, but eat a meal, sit in on a class, talk to a professor, attend a sporting event, get a feel for that university campus. Parents, as I mentioned before, visit the Career Placement Center and find out what the real deal is in terms of numbers. And if your return of investment, the old economic term ROI, is going, you're putting money in, you want to make sure that that student is going to be reaping the benefits upon graduation. And it's up to the parents to visit the financial aid office to see what the financial office can do in terms of how much is this really going to cost me. And then finally, on the way home, don't talk about this, just let everybody sleep and relax, except for the driver. And wait a few days, and then over dinner, when it's a little, more calm, then kind of share what your feelings and everything are. Don't make the mistake of a parent of saying, that university, I don't want you going there, because that becomes the student's top choice. Just because you said, I don't want you going there, so they'll say, okay, good, I'm going there. Sending a thank you note to the admissions, go to Hallmark and get the box of thank you notes that are blank on the inside, and have the student handwrite, thank you, it was a great tour, and always have them add the line, you are my #1 choice. Okay, so if he's writing to 8 different schools, you're my #1 choice, you're my #1 choice, you're my #1 choice, you're my #1 choice. Yeah, you're always #1 choice. They love hearing it even though they know you may be lying through your teeth. And then maybe the student follows up with an email, just a follow-up email about an accomplishment or still showing an interest in that university. Best times to visit, Mondays to Thursdays. Monday, especially if it's a high school holiday where you're off because college or university is open. Late summer, early September, spring of junior year, accepted students' days, those are all great times. Worst times to visit is probably when you're all off, okay? Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, spring break. All you'll be seeing is, hey, look at that, it's a building. Oh, look at those trees over there. Where are the students? Well, they're not here, they're down in Florida on spring break. I mentioned the herd mentality. this is really where a student has to understand, I have to stand out in this process. Normally, students want to dress the same, they want to all kind of be the same, and they all move the same way, and that's not good for this process. You know, we want students to volunteer, bless you, stand out, take a stand, take risks. This is the most important time for them to show their originality and their creativity and their uniqueness. This is the most important time. And I emphasize this when I'm talking to students because many of them think that, you know, I'll just apply to the same schools my friends are, or I'll take the easy way and just apply to a few schools I know I can get into. No, sometimes you have great opportunities if you just stretch a little bit. Everybody's on social media. 90% of admissions officers are going to take a look at online footprints for each student that is applying. Now, if the student has stupid things that are plainly visible, that's not going to be good. Now, admissions directors are not going to try and figure out the password to get into the protected site, you know, where all the good stuff that the student has with all the funny photos and everything else like that. They don't have time, they're not looking there. But if it's out there on the internet, in plain view, they're going to use it either for or against that applicant. I like to say the internet does not create stupidity, it only reveals it. If you're a sophomore, this is the time to learn about the honors and AP courses that your school gives, begin volunteering in community service. Maybe you want to start your own business and become an entrepreneur, including landscaping, babysitting, computer. I mean, many students can fix computers, and where you go is get Vistaprint, get 500 of your little cards, $9.95, and instead of having them take it to Staples or to Best Buy, you show up and for $30 an hour, or however you want to charge, you fix the computer, okay? All the freshman and sophomore marks count, and again, finding the extracurricular activities that are going to be important for those students now. We're back here in the fall, we just talked about financial aid briefly. Just know that financial aid forms begin to be filed October 1st, and there are lots of things that go into it. You're all entitled to a free consultation, which I can go into this a bit further. But these are some terms that you should be familiar with. The tuition, living expenses, books, and fees are all cost of attendance items. And if you want to take a look at the actual fees, these are actual fees that you'll find that schools charge for. I love the ID card fee so much, I included it twice, because they charge you again if you lose it. But there's student excellence fee, matriculation fee, campus spirit fee, that's a good one, solar energy fee. If you take a look at your bill, you'll see 10 to 12% of your bill is nothing but fees. Scholarships, I'll be sending you a whole batch as a thank you, websites and places that you can look for your students. So begin looking now. Many of the students that are here now are only sophomores and juniors. You'll be doing this probably in your senior year after you finish your applications, but it's good to know that there's good stuff out there. One of the websites, raise.me, is a website where if you list the students' extracurricular activities, this website assigns a dollar amount, not a lot, but money's money. So if it pays for a textbook or pays for something that you don't have to pay for out of pocket, it's not a bad thing. But scholarships range anywhere from merit and academic, athletic, talent and excellence, and things like that. So definitely something to take a look at. I always caution students and families to make sure that you keep debt under control. After 4 years as a bachelor's degree graduate, Pennsylvania students average almost $35,000 in their own name in debt. That does not include anything that you take on and other loans that you may take out. And that is equivalent to $360 a month repayment for 10 years, and averages 15% of that student's salary, and that's not take home, that's gross. So most college graduates earning $40,000 a year rely on parents to support them because they can't make it on their own. So I always tell students, you have to be different, don't fit in, stand out. Even if you fail a little bit, it's always a good thing. It's one of those things that I definitely recommend. That's my daughter, graduated in 2013, and I'm sure you see the good-looking gentleman next to him. I will finish tonight by giving you what I call a little benediction, nothing religious, but let me tell you what my daughter has done, because I'm a proud papa. Graduated in 2013 in 4 years. That's very key. Graduated with very little debt. That's key. Got a job in her career field. Very key. Got a 21% raise last month. Has a 401k. Earns enough to have her own apartment and pay her own rent. Has a leased car that's newer than mine and pays for it with the insurance. Well, and probably the most important thing, here's the big headline, she's happy, okay? That's the important thing. She's happy and she's earning a living and she's not relying on me. Sometimes, I mean, once a year maybe she'll come to me and she'll say, Dad, I'm a little short, and you can see she is. But I always say, here's a couple of $100 because it's not, I'm paying her rent every month. It's not I have to make a car payment for her. So all of these things is part of the whole admissions process, financial aid, et cetera, and making sure you're setting your student up on the right path, okay? So the blue cards that you have there, please fill them out and give them in to me. I will be in touch with you to schedule your free consultation if you so desire. It's free and there's no, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I am a fee for service, and my fee is very reasonable, but we'll cross that bridge if and when you need that. So right now, you just need information that I think a lot of was included here, but maybe some things that of a personal nature, your own family situation, you want to take a look at. Okay? So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If you have a question that you don't want to share with the audience, I'll remain after, and you can ask me, you know, one-to-one. And I just want to thank you very much for coming down. Again, not great weather, but I'm glad you guys made it in. My pleasure to present to you, and hopefully I'll be seeing you for a consultation real soon. So thank you very much.